can see my eyes just don't know. I don't know. I'm looking, yeah.
Marc Clarke, that's classic. I love it.
Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. Bootsy Vegas with the brand new teeth. Look at him, y'all. Look at him, boy. Bootsy, you know what?
What's up?
We have to investigate. You know, we have many partners on the show, Bootsy. And what I was thinking about was you always wear cool glasses, cool sunglasses.
Yeah,
We
that's
need
true.
to have a sunglasses partner on the show. Bootsy Vegas, a icon in
Oh wow.
TV,
Okay.
and we need to get a partner,
I like the way you thinking, Mark.
a
I like the way I'm
sunglasses partner.
where the money reside. I like the way you thinking this morning, Mr. Clark.
Where the
Come with it.
money resides, where the money resides.
From your lips to God's ears, expeditiously, sir. You know what I mean? Good morning, Mr. Clark. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Good morning, sir.
You
Are
looking
you staying out of trouble?
Oh well, no. First of all, I don't get into trouble. Those days have been long gone. I went to the dentist yesterday. I had a great night last night, so that was great as well. You know what I mean?
You had a great night?
Yeah. So I ended up doing. I was in the studio yesterday with Raheem Devon. Me and Raheem Devon has reunited our go-go band. Basically, it's Northeast Groovers. Me and Raheem, we kind of then put these go-go all-stars. So we had a 4-hour session yesterday.
What?
And let me tell you something. It was the best. Let me say this. Sometimes you don't know what you need until you get it. And I've been fighting staying away from music in certain realms a lot because I'm in other places. But I swear, yesterday my soul, my spirit, everything connected to what I was doing. It was actually some magical stuff happening there yesterday. So.
Well, Bootsy,
Um,
don't run from your gift, brother.
yeah, I see. Well, last night showed me that because normally I'm sleepy at night. I gotta wake myself up. When I do other stuff, man, I was so alert. And I'm gonna tell you something else that music does for me, and I'm sure you probably know this as well. When you have been doing something since you was a kid, it keeps you young. It almost connects me to my youth doing go-go music as well, and I just have this youthful energy that the spirit connects with. You know what I mean? I've really been denying it or going in other directions, but last night just validated everything that I've been thinking that, you know what, I need to get back into it. Shout out to Raheem Devon, May the 5th, over by the National Harbor. We're doing something for his birthday, and we were practicing, but we ended up just doing another session of recording. So shout out to that, man. But yeah, so that was a great night for me.
Man, you know what's so funny? I see Sandra. Sandra is back, Bootsy. Sandra.
Oh, where have you been, my lady? Yes.
Sandra's been out there. Sandra's so in demand.
She counting that money.
She hasn't had a chance.
That's what she's been doing. She's been busy counting that money in the morning.
And she's been in demand. She can't, so she hasn't had a chance to be hanging out with us, but I'm glad that she's back. Shout out to Kevin in Colombia, sending love from Colombia all the way to Colombia.
Absolutely.
And today we got Paul Porter. Paul's having some challenges hopping on, but Paul Porter is going to be venting today. I don't know what Paul's going to be venting about, but we're excited about that.
Boy,
Sandra,
about this.
Sandra basically brought me to crypto. The crypto world.
She didn't bring me yet. Neither one of y'all have brought me yet.
Well, Bootsy, she brought. Well, you got to call. Got to call her. Got to talk to her.
But, Sandra, I'm gonna call you today.
Okay, and so I'm starting to understand. It's funny how stuff works. Like, the more and more you're around it, the more you start to understand it. So again, Sandra, we're all excited because Sandra brought me to crypto, giving me a basic understanding. Then my friend Rondi, who Rondi is, super supporter, he basically introduced me to a friend, Alex Slocum, who had this token, who had this dream of creating this token that will change the world. And so Sandra heard Alex, she hopped on, and the rest is history. So we're waiting because like I said, after the end of May, around your birthday, is the first time we can actually,
Absolutely.
trade the token. And so, Bootsy, hold on tight, brother. Hold on tight,
man. June the
and
1st.
and again,
from your lips to the crypto god's ears, sir. Come on now. Come on now, man.
And so Sandra says she's looking forward to the call, man. And so
no, I will. I'm gonna call. You're going to have to send me your number again. But let me say this: I appreciate all this advice. This is one of the beautiful things about this show is that we get so much information that can help us directly that we probably should have been informed, that we're getting informed about. And I love the fact that we take the time to really bring experts on, and me and you are not too whatever we are to say that we don't know as well, and we're learning in the process. So this is one of the amazing things about doing the show that I love is that we venture and we find out new things every week. So man, I appreciate it.
And so Bootsy is so interesting. Again, when you're not here, Bootsy, it's not the same. When Bootsy Vegas is not on the show,
I be missing y'all. I'm like literally my mind and my body is tuned to 10 o'clock. Like I have a regiment now that I do.
Tuned to 10. Now look, this is what I love about Kevin. Kevin, like Sandra, they got a whole bunch of different interests from health. Sandra is in the pharmaceutical piece,
right?
And then to life. And then Kevin hits us with this. Scientific evidence suggests that music can have a profound effect on individuals, from helping improve the recovery of motor and cognitive function in stroke patients, reducing symptoms of depression to patients suffering from dementia. Two, crypto. Kevin going to hit top crypto prices today. Kevin, I'm telling you, our viewers, our listeners, our friends are the most diverse in the world.
Wow.
And you know what? This is why now, Bootsy, I don't know if you watch, Joe Rogan. For many people have opinions on Joe Rogan, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing that I do love about his podcast is his podcast can talk about a million different things, right? And I think our show is similar. You know what I mean? So for those, if you don't watch it, right, Joe Rogan, people are offended because, they take headlines and they kind of say this is what he's talking about. But really his show he has a whole bunch of different interests.
I agree with that.
Much like many of us.
Yeah, but also he's very diverse. I didn't know much about him until recently. I love the fact that he can have diverse conversations with diverse people. But the other thing that I appreciate is that the fact that he's not in there trying to be the genius. He'll tell you what he knows, but he's great at getting things out of the guests that a Caucasian person probably would not know that perspective if they didn't hear his show.
And the other part about it that's funny is he is a human and he is a white man. And so sometimes his perspective when he talks about race is so funny because when I listen, I'm just like, oh my God, this reminds me of my white friends. It's so limited. Right. Because, it's so limited because he's a white guy. And that's okay. We all have limits, just like some people will watch us and say the same thing. Now, our next guest, Bootsy Vegas, is a media legend, and not only in the DMV.
Yeah, because be clear, I'm from DC. So he means a lot to us. If you're from where I'm from, growing up, when I grew up. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
His rich baritone has graced the stages from Harvard to Roland Martin to Fox News to, of course, BET. His opinion, he can be brash. He can be lovable. He can be blunt. He can be tender.
But you know what else he is, though? He's always honest.
Well, yeah. Well, sometimes. No joke. This brother right here, I love this dude. This brother, we have cried together. We have laughed together. And the crazy part about it, and damn it, after the end of the month, I'm going to fly out to see him. We're going to hang out. Paul Porter. We've not met in person, but he's like my damn brother. He's like my damn brother. Paul Porter, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, hey, first of all, man, I've been watching you two do your thing now for a while. That's why I hit you up. I said, man, Mark, you told me I was getting on. But anyway, I'm not brash. I'm not rough. I just tell the truth.
You just honest,
Paul. Where truth doesn't mean as much, like lying is in. Like everybody loves a liar. They love President Trump. They love, lies mean everything. And I've been telling this story for a while, and people are finally getting it. And it's scary, man. Our culture has been beat down with a bat for 2 decades. And we're believing this, man. And we're not doing anything. Everybody's dancing. And it kills me because I love music. I love entertainment. I love communication, but we're not thinking, bro. We just accepting jobs and holding on like, you know, and everybody's real quiet. So yeah, I am brash because I talk about, you know, like in the book, people just kill me for talking about Kathy Hughes, you know, how great she is. But guess what? If she's paying people $10 an hour 20 years later, she's not that great. Wow. You know? And we got to be honest, man. We got to police our own and talk about these issues.
So
that didn't take long. That didn't take long.
Paul hit
that
me,
did not take long.
And Paul, I don't know. Paul's going to tell us something. Something was got to Paul because Paul hit me and said, "Mark, I need to come on and I need to vent." And so, Paul, as you know, this is the place because here we believe in it. Now, Paul, I was going to tap on this the other day, but Bootsy didn't want to go there. And so, Paul, in addition to what you're going to say, because I want you to be free, I don't want you to get it out, right? But I had a thought, Paul, and your website tapped on this, and to be honest, it didn't click, it didn't all the way click. It's all the way clicked now, right? Which you probably been trying to say, have been saying, but we're not hearing, because that's the other part. People can say stuff, but if you're not ready to receive it, you're just not ready to receive it, right? So Paul, I wrote this down. I left my book upstairs, but I still kind of remember. So I said, Paul, you know, you look at Snowfall. So you say government controlled drugs into the neighborhood, right? Government controlled media. The last one, Paul, hit me. You've been talking about for years. Government controlled music, influence. You know. Because the question of why are we still singing about blah, 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 blah? Why are we still blah, blah, blah? We keep asking that why? But then you go, yeah, it's a plan. It's a system. It's a plan. It's a thing. And so, Paul, I just wanted to put that out there because it finally, the drug part and the media part is talked about a lot, you know, in different shows. But what's not really talked about is really when we say government influenced music industry, when you say the messaging, there's a reason why an artist gets paid so much more with one message, but when the message is something else is different. And then lastly, Paul, we all were there. We remembered when the positivity was at its peak. Cats got rid of the gold. They were wearing onks and Africa and wood and Africa signs and positivity and saying these messages. And then NWA hits, and overnight that all went out the window to like never ever return again. So I just had that observation, Paul. And what I'm saying is, it's more than a coincidence. It's not a conspiracy.
It's money, though. It's money.
System.
It's not government. Yeah, it's the system.
So Paul Porter, go ahead. Your rant. I don't know what your rants were today, but go ahead, brother. First of all, and also let's not forget the book. If you have not picked up Paul's book,
amazing
please pick up
too.
the book.
The book is amazing.
Thank you. Blackout, my 40 years in the music business. I'll tell you what kicked this off. You know, yesterday was the anniversary. My best friend came down here a year ago. Cancer, and he was here for 18 hours. His bucket list trip was to see his boy, you know, and we grew up together in Queens. His father was at Howard Hospital, the chief of radiology. I used to come to DC in the 70s, and he drowned in my pool a year ago. And the past week, I've been reflecting on everything we've done for years, and it's just getting worse. And that's why I hit you, man. I was in tears yesterday just thinking about how we're just going down with Black music culture. You know, there was so many times, even in the 90s, when 5 songs out of the top 10 were love songs. You know what I mean? And we shared so much love. And Black folks, our culture is so tied to the music industry, and we're seeing the pain of the past 20 years. And I love hip hop, but that's not our only thing. You know, kids don't know instruments. People don't know how to sing or put a song together, but we keep celebrating it and not demanding more. And it's all because of the money. And I found out about the money because I've been in the business and see how it's increased, and less people are talking. And the few people that have remained are the good Negroes. And I'm not saying there's all, but they're soft as Charmin. You know, they believe this research and this is what the people want. And they sound just like the white boys that were telling me about the research in the 80s when we didn't research anything. Our research was our Black community. And I always say, everybody talks about research. How come everybody doesn't win? You know, everybody has research. It's interpretation. So, you know, I just try to knock on brothers and sisters' heads to say, let's wake up. We are developing. I had my first grandchild in March.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about Nyla. How is she going to grow up? How is she going to grow up with these images and the things that we say? And, you know, and look, I respect all communities, but you can see the difference where the lesbian and gay community have taken control and got their message out. And now if you look at TV and you see two men kissing, you're not surprised. But you would be surprised if you would see Black folks talking positive on a hip hop record. If Stop the Violence came out now, you'd be in shock. Because we sort of promote the violence. We accept the violence.
Wow.
So anyway,
that's a great point, Paul, because, you know, I was just telling my students, so I teach broadcast journalism to high school and college students in the DC area. I've said 31 kids to college as mass comm majors in the last 6 years. I told them this at the end of the summer. I said, I want you to realize what is happening to you right now. You are being marketed trauma. In the world we live in now, the only thing that is marketed to young Black people is trauma, killing, the whole drill music. And I really wanted, and I was emphasizing the fact that, do you know what's being marketed? Do you know what's being promoted? And do you really understand the context of it? I would love to know, you know what I mean? Because obviously we do know that it's an issue. We can see it. What would be your suggestion for somebody like me to tell students and young minds that I am developing? What would be the advice you would give to me as I teach them about what it is and how not to and navigate into it?
You know, that's something I do every day, man. I have a radio station here in Orlando, a nonprofit. We deal with students. And now I've been teaching kids down in Delray Beach, Boynton Beach, up in Orange County in Florida. The same thing you're doing, working with them, showing them something new, the world of voiceovers. And that was something I did for a long time, sort of got back into it. I just think we got to show them more. We're not showing these kids
the alternative.
Yeah.
The alternative.
Yeah, and it hit me. I was, you know, I get called in to speak at different places. And I went down to this place, paid me a good wage, and all the kids, they had a great studio. And I said, this same room that you use to record beats in, you can do voiceovers in and make money. And they were like, huh? I said, everything you see on television, on your mobile phone, somebody's getting paid for. So that voice, and for so long, I didn't want to do it. You know, my first big voiceover was like in '92. I got paid to say 6 words and made 65 grand. I said, AT&T, it's all within your reach. And I was like, wow. And when you share that with young kids,
wow,
they're like, okay, everybody doesn't want to be a rapper. Everybody doesn't want to be a basketball player, but we're not showing enough things to these young people or talking to them about it. We only think these are the only ways to you don't make it out the hood, and that's the sad part about it.
You know what? So Paul, this is where I am, guys, because we were there. Bootsy, you maybe not you, but definitely me and Paul. So when you talk about hip hop, right? So Paul and I remember there was a time when playing rap on the radio was controlled, right? And so, Paul, what I'm trying to get to the bottom of, because we never do a deep dive, just like your book did a deep dive into Black radio.
Yes,
and you had a whole website dedicated to this, Paul.
Yeah, Rap
now,
Rehab is still there. RapRehab.com.
Rap Rehab. And now, Paul, I'm really, and it's not even as a parent, I'm really like the more I think about it, Paul, like I said, government, and you said money. All I'm saying, Paul, is so rap music is the only, for those of us who have kids or deal with young people, we know that kids only want the uncensored version of the song,
Yeah.
right? Paul and I remember when that didn't exist.
Yeah.
There was a time, believe it or not, where there wasn't an uncensored version of the song.
Wow.
Right? So, number one, that's only in rap. You know, punk, all those other forms there's rarely around even. It's only where you have black music and this uncensored version of that we're talking about. So that's why it's very unique for urban formats, because the question then becomes, who decided to subjugate our children to this uncensored, super mature music? Because when we were growing up, there were standards that said this type of blue music or comedy was really going to be for adults, and you could only get it in clubs, and you can only get it here. Now, somebody had the bright idea to put this out. So, Paul, when I'm starting to try to deconstruct is, whose bright idea was that? So then, as you said, so they put it out and they discovered that because it's something kids want, that it's going to make $1 billion. And so that's what happened. Because the funny part is, just like politics, when we talk about radio, we'll be like, oh, they play the edited version on the radio. Well, kids don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
So it's a fake argument. It's almost like it's like politics. You know, these fake issues. You create a fake issue, and we're battling over fake issues. But the real issue is this uncensored, super inappropriate adult music targeted for teenagers and kids is freaking robbing our kids of everything, and we're not even talking about it. Your website is dedicated to that, at least having a conversation.
Yeah.
But now we're not even having the conversation. Now, when a song like WAP comes out, people are saying, oh, this is black feminine. What are you talking about? This is some bullshit.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, this is not appropriate. My daughters in college will argue me down. This is inappropriate. This is bad for girls because you're sexualizing girls, which has been going on since the beginning of time. Now you're putting a stamp of saying this is feminine power or girl power. It's like, what the hell is going on? And we're not having any conversations. We're just sitting here taking it. And our kids, sadly, are being shipped off to jail and lifestyles that cripple them for generations. And we ain't doing nothing. We ain't doing a damn thing.
Because of the money. So let me tell you a story. When I was at BET, when I was programming in '99, I can't even think of, Curtis. Curtis, I can't think of Curtis' last name. He had a ponytail, but he was out of LA. And they brought me back to BET to program the network to get the numbers up. Well, first thing I did, I took out all the crap, there was just so many paid to play. This took out over 1,000 videos. Ratings went up, but I put a little culture in it. And I'll never forget the time I played Michael Jackson's Remember the Time video. And I get a call from LA Why are you playing Michael Jackson? You know, there's some old school flavor. Great song, remember? He said, Def Jam paid us $3 million and you're not playing so-and-so record, video, blah, 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 and play that record. And it was all about money. Greg Diggs at BET thought the same thing. But money wins. When you're putting money in people's hands, they shut up. And it's easier to pay BET and, 50 programmers to control our culture than it is standing up and fighting against it. We've been beat down for so long. We accept WAP. You know what I mean? So we
Paul,
come
why? So Paul, why is there evidence? Why the terrible messaging? Why aren't projects that are more positive funded? And why does it have to be drugs, sex, exploitation? Drugs, sex, exploitation. That's what I guess. That's what my question is. Why that and not something? If it's just money, why wouldn't you just fund projects that are, you can say
because we're stuck on stupid for a long time. And
is there a voice that's
like
saying
don't step up? Yeah.
It's just like the news? Is there a voice that's saying it has to be? You know what? I thought about this I was just listening to Pharrell's produced T-Pain, not T-Pain, your man from Virginia, the track that Jay-Z's on
Brunton?
Huh? No, the same
Pharrell?
rapper.
Yeah.
Pharrell produced the brother from Virginia who worked with Kanye. What's his name?
Oh, Teddy Ratty?
Nope, he's a rapper.
Okay.
So Wrist and Chain, his new single's Wrist and Chain with Jay-Z on it.
Okay.
Oh, Pusha T.
Pusha T. Right.
I'm sorry.
So,
Pusha T.
Paul, I'm listening. Okay, Pharrell, rich beyond measure. Everybody in this song is rich beyond measure, right? So why? And Pusha T again. There was a time when he was he made his money rapping about the trap and drugs, right?
Uh-huh.
Now everybody on the track are multimillionaires.
Mm-hmm.
But the song, Paul, is still singing about, like the drug culture. Jay-Z hops on and talks about all the shit he has. But I'm like, Paul, why is Pharrell and Pusha T and Jay-Z still rapping about drugs when they have so much other things going on? What popped in my mind was, Paul, that they get paid more. Like I was like, that's all all I could think of, Paul, was Pharrell got all the money in the world. Why am I producing a track about Pusha saying about the same shit he sang about when he was broke? And I'm like promoting the drug culture. Is there a tie-in? Do I get a bonus if I push the drug culture? Because then as I push the drug culture, I push them into prison. I mean, is there a system here? Is it just money, Paul?
It has to be. Think about it. Pharrell, one of his biggest songs was Happy.
Right. So why are we pushing a song about drugs and what it has in it? Well, all I can think of, Paul, is because you get a bonus, because as long as you sing about drugs, these kids still idolize drug dealers and want to be drug dealers, and your ass is going right to prison. So you're funding the straight to prison system by singing about drugs.
Yeah, but the beauty about this system is most people are sheep. If we were doing something positive, they'd be positive.
And that's what I'm saying. Why is
people that own, and it starts with ownership. You know what I mean? It starts with one person that says, I'm not going to do this on my radio station or my television station or my show or as a producer. It starts like that, and it's a snowball that gets bigger, but nobody's starting. When you talk to the executives at labels, it's funny, Bruno Mars has changed black music more by doing that Silk Sonic project because he demanded to make an R&B album and push it to #1. Who would think Love's Train, done by Confunction back 50 years ago, only he could do that? You know what I mean? Because he's that big. So here we got a guy like Bruno Mars changing black music and saying R&B's okay. But if it's Tyga, he's going to talk about the tits and the ass and everything else. And slowly it might change, but it's not going to change until we start speaking up about it. You know, I wish I could sit down with Kathy Hughes and say, yo, you got all these places and all this input. You could really change the game, but nobody's changing. And, you know, and these companies come out with the, you know, like New York has the block now and the old school, but nobody's dealing with current day black folks, you know, our issues. You know, we're either too old to know what's going on. And it's all smoke and mirrors, man. This is a business of smoke and mirrors and who's getting paid.
Bootsy, Bootsy, it's so funny because I know you got questions, Bootsy.
No, it's just interesting because I love hearing them talk or whatever. Now, you know, for a guy that's born and raised in DC, we know him as the Captain Paul Porter. You know, I don't know if you still use that, but you know, a lot of people still refer to you.
If it has a check attached to it, Paul still uses it.
Hey,
right.
Donnie Simpson gave me that name and it stuck. I didn't want it. 1982, I come to town as a 24-year-old. So see, you can figure out I'm 64 now. And things just changed, man. And I love Donnie Simpson, you know, and a lot of folks, the beauty of this business is everybody who doesn't know me hates me. You know, because I'm out. And the people that say they hate me, they don't know me at all. You know
what?
Well, Paul, let's keep it real. Let's keep it real, Paul. When Paul does not bite his tongue.
What for? You know why?
Right.
I worked for Kathy Hughes on 8th Street, busted my ass, took her radio station from a 0 share to 4.6, and 9 months later I got fired. I was bald. I learned to speak up after that. I got a head full of hair, okay? The stress will kill you working for our people. You know, same thing at BET. I did wonders, 10 years at BET. Stephen Hill came out. He had punk written all over him. And I love Stephen Hill. I forgive everybody for that. And we talked about it since then. But, you know, when he fired me, he later told me 20 years later that I was his idol growing up in DC. And I had no idea Stephen Hill changed his name to the Captain on the radio for 6 years. And he told me that. He was the captain at ILD. And I said, why didn't you talk to me then? But that was his problem. You know what I mean? He was intimidated. And we got a lot of patching up and holes because I'm far from perfect. You know, in the 80s, I snorted Peru. Okay. So we have issues, but we can mend those issues because we're all black and brown first. And if we ever connect the dots and lock arms, the power's there, bro.
What it is, Paul, here's the problem. Okay. Most people are insecure, right?
Exactly.
When you talk about black folks, not just black folk, but if you don't, the corporate structure is set up so the weak management can't really handle somebody that they're intimidated by. So that already is an issue. But when you talk about our community, everybody's personality is different, and so what happens with a personality like you, Paul, because you and I are great because we're not the same, but we have no problem with being honest. When me and Allison got the gig at HUR, Paul says, Bootsy, he goes, I wouldn't have paid that much for you guys for afternoons. I would have put you at mornings, right? Now, I understand that. You know what I'm saying? But again, I've been mornings. I've been a manager. I know how the game works. And I'm secure with who I am. So I can't take it like that. Now, my wife, on the other hand, obviously, she was Paul. Like mad as hell because she's like, what? Because people have a tendency, people aren't used to just honesty. I prefer honesty. You know what I'm saying? Now, Paul, some people would never have said that because they would have been concerned about the reaction, but Paul didn't care because that's who Paul is. So that's why some people have an issue with Paul. I, on the other hand, I love that about him, and that's what makes our bond stronger. But also, I too, like Paul, have had challenges in the industry, and I realize a lot of times employers, if they're insecure or if they are control freaks, people like us, they shy away from people like us because they don't want to, they don't like real conversations. They don't like to, they want you to be either a servant or they want you to be a sheep, or they want you like here's my, this has happened so much in my career. This line of questioning happens a lot. And this is what always happens since day one. So your boss tells you something and I say, look, I feel like blah, 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 blah. And then they say, okay, Mark, just do it. And then I would say, boss, don't I always just do it? Don't I execute everything you ask me to do? The answer is going to be yes. But I'm going to say this. I always have a right to have my opinion. And then they get that funny look on their face. Because again, bosses just aren't used to people that approach it that way. Why do I approach it that way? Because I saw my mom work for Social Security and get dogged out. And I decided then, as a kid, I would always express myself. I'd be a good employee, but I always express myself because as a human being, I have a right to do that. And if that means you're going to blow me out, well, blow me out. And I think that's the part, Paul, that probably.
Yeah. But my point about you back then with Dr. Frederick was WHUR hasn't had a local morning show in how many years? 10? That's my issue.
Hold on, like, way longer than 10, almost 30.
Yeah, whatever. It's like, how do you have the blackest university on the planet in Washington, D.C., and have a syndicated morning show? That's a weak brain that wants to do that. You know, they don't want to create change at HUR. They want to win, but they don't want to do it like they should. And that's the scary part. So we get all these people kind of in the business, you know.
Why do you think that is, Paul? Why do you think that they didn't have a morning show, or they're not, like in these major markets, they're going syndicated with morning shows?
Because they're safe. They're safe. They don't have to be creative. But they have Marc Clarke right there, who won 60 miles away in Baltimore forever, who's a morning guy who went in the afternoons being quiet, listening to people that he has double the experience over just to get a check, you know? and you got the check. It could have been longer if they listened, but that's what happens. But yeah, when somebody does something creative, I want to do something creative. When Magic started, it was the second urban AC station in the country. There was Chicago VAC, and Kathy Hughes said, do what you want. I did what I wanted. It was fun. Same thing when I got back to BET. It changed. Ratings went up. Sometimes it's okay to be different. We just don't breed, you know, change at all. We and that's why radio's dead. Look in New York. Hot 97 is number 17. So shut the fuck up. You ain't shit anymore. You're 17 in New York. Power's number 15. So obviously you're doing something wrong. And they still got the big egos. You know, Ebro's still swinging his dick and programming. Come on, you're not even winning in your own city. So,
Do you think?
Go ahead. Am I Stevie Wonder? But I see this. Does anybody else see it?
Okay, so my question is, do you ever think there'd be a time where they would allow black people to have personality on the radio? Because it seems like, just in general, first of all, the most amazing thing is how many other ethnic groups are on urban black radio. So that's one thing or whatever. But do you think we'll ever get back to the time where they'll have traditional, normal radio personalities, or you think this is what standard black radio is going to be in the future?
I think there's people that understand it, you know, and there's some great jocks on the air doing great personality, but for the most part, they're not paying folks enough to be in radio, you know. Look, come on, let's be real. Ricky Smiley is terrible. He cannot read, okay? You should be able to read. Every time I hear him butchering through a spot, he's the Al Sharpton of radio. And Al Sharpton, he's a lovely guy, but he can't read copy. Like back in the day, Mark, you had to know how to read. And Ricky can't read. And he's okay, he might be funny, but he's the #1 jock in Black America. Please. That is politics. That is not talent. And I know the show does well and all that stuff, but come on, man. Communication is really basic, and he doesn't have that skill.
Now,
Who
Paul,
do you like right now? Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Who
Go
do
ahead.
you like right now? Just as a general, like who does Paul Porter listen to and kind of
If I
appreciate?
get in my car, I listen to Deion Summers and the Heat on Sirius XM.
Okay.
You know, they do a good job with their personalities and the music. And you know, there were so many great morning shows. Like I remember BJ up in Philly when he came to DC. There were this great morning shows. There was a competition before, and that competition is now syndication.
Here's the crazy thing. I was in DC when it was Howard Stern, Donnie Simpson. I remember it was Don and Mike. I can remember just how competitive it was. And believe it or not, shoot, I lived here when Petey Green. I can remember Petey Green doing mornings. So trust me, like I can still visualize black radio in the competitive nature that was, especially what y'all did when you was there at WKOS. But the other thing that was interesting is I don't know about what people realize that you literally built two things. So for people who do not know, 8th Street, when he first started there, the whole area was I hate to call it a dump. It was horrible. It was crack infested. People actually went in and robbed the studio before. And it was, it was interesting that for people like me who know who Paul is, I know he helped build the 8th Street one, but also I know he literally put Magic 102.3 on his back as well. What do you think the differences is now? What do you think the difference would be if you had to build a radio station now versus back then? Because we have the internet, we have streaming services, and so many multiple ways to be able to consume radio. You don't necessarily have autonomy on one direct thing. What do you think the challenges would be if you had to do it today?
Having that right situation. Mark knows a couple of years ago, I was up for the GM job at HUR. That's when we got into these conversations. And I was like, this is the one job that I would move from Florida. They're owned by the university. They have two great stations on Sirius XM. You can do what you want to do and be a leader in Washington, D.C. And they had a budget, but it didn't happen. You got to find somebody who believes in you that can finance it. You know, my little 100-watt station in Orlando, I can do whatever I want, but ain't nobody can hear me. You know, it goes 14 miles. So, yeah, do we do well for those 14 miles? Yeah, but we need 60 miles to make money. So, you know, it's a battle out here. And radio's dead in so many forms, but it's dead because everybody has brain lock. I call it brain lock. And I think a lot of the folks that are in their late 40s and 50s in this business are just trying to ride it out. And the revolutionary stage ended in the 60s and 70s. Now people are doing good. I remember when it was cool. You know, if you just had a flat screen TV, a big TV, and a nice car, you'd be happy. And we got a lot of happy folks that are singing and dancing in radio now. And
I remember, Paul, and you remember too, the days when, and it's so funny because, you know, when you're a part of something, when it changes, it's weird because it sneaks up on you, you know. I remember, you know, so in Baltimore Nights UQ, at the end of the day, you have an artist come in, right? So you have an artist come in, and we pretty much, Paul remembers, if you had a morning show or after whatever, you kind of like had the power to kind of do what you do, right? So artist comes in, you play a couple songs, you interview them, you chop it up, and it was just, you really just, you pretty much could do your thing, right? And I remember when CeeLo Green came in.
Oh, CeeLo.
And, of course, CeeLo Green, who that kind of artist is great because, he has you got the CeeLo Green that's a member of Goody Mob, and you got the CeeLo Green as a solo artist. And so you get a chance to talk about that, hit off some songs from the Goody Mob, hit off some songs CeeLo Green, da-da-da. And again, I was in Baltimore for almost 10 years. So this is just what you do, right? And so then, of course, I get called into Victor Starr's office, the new program director. And, he wants you, I need to get permission. You didn't ask me if you could. And it's just so funny. You just felt like a crazy person because you're just like, that's what you, I've been doing that since I started doing mornings, Yeah. And now all of a sudden you had to have the controls of people who may or may not even know the history of a CeeLo Green, you know what I mean? Who may or may not know the intricacies of urban music. And this is the analogy I've always used. You heard me use this before, Bootsy. For program directors, for anybody who has something to say about urban radio, I say, tell me what a ham hock does.
Wow.
If you can't tell me what a ham hock does, because again, when you throw that ham hock in them greens, baby, it cooks down, it's whatever. But if you can't tell me what a ham hock does, you don't need to be saying anything about my audience because you don't understand. And that's how urban radio kind of is. But sadly, we saw it get stripped away, right?
Look, my man Bob Thomas is down in Virginia, in Norfolk. He's been number one for like years down there. And they got a young white guy programming the station that programs nothing. But he's the guru now at Entercom or Odyssey or whatever, but he knows nothing about the closest he knows about black folks is blackface. It's really a shame.
Damn.
But we let it go. We let it go time and time because I get it, man. And I've lost every job that I've had, maybe one or two that I left on my own, but it's, if you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu, and especially in black radio and black folks in general, So
Paul, I want to switch up because I want to get your take because, and again, if you're not comfortable talking about it, but again, I can't imagine you're not. So Paul, you were in the market. We just lost, another media personality. Bruce from Channel 9.
Yeah.
Johnson, man.
And also, and we lost another legend in the market too. The young lady who just passed away.
Wendy Rieger.
Wendy Rieger. Paul, you were here not only in the market, but you also were, getting it in. And so, a lot of these, you mentioned earlier that, you used to get your party on. And by partying, we say party, back cocaine. But me and Allison were talking about from Max Robinson to Bruce to
Jim Vance.
Most of all of the black male stars in the market, not all of them, but I'm saying Jim Vance. A lot of them struggled, Mayor for Life, with addiction or they were, drug users at a certain. It was a time, right?
Yo, but I did too.
Right, that's what I'm gonna say. Well, Paul, that's what I'm gonna say. Well, that's what I'm coming to. So, Paul, do you think at the end of the day, they were a little bit older than you, most of them were, but they suffered. I think their bodies, because Bruce was into working out and stuff later on in life and everything else. But so, Paul, do you think it was just the time? A lot of the people happened to be drug users, happened to be partiers, but it wasn't part of the time. What do you think, Paul? Is that tied to it, or you think it just is what it is?
Oh, no, it was the time, man. I was in D.C. in the early 80s, and I tell this story on C-SPAN. C-SPAN gave me 90 minutes for Blackout. Google it. I tell this story. I go to the drug dealer's house, my man Rico, on 14th Street. This is when cocaine was at every party in D.C. You had to have cocaine. I go up to his second floor apartment, all the doors open because his whole family lived up there. I walk in the apartment, and on the couch, totally zooted, high as a kite is Jim Vance, Marion Barry, and John F. Kennedy Jr. And they're sitting there like this, like with the cocaine face. And I'm like, holy shit, man. You know, I'm like, hey, what's up? And 15 minutes later, I was like, just sitting in there with them. And I go, and I told that story 5 years ago because they're all dead. And I go, why am I alive? I survived through some crazy shit, you know? But that was the time, you know, it was just cool. And the parties were different then, you know, the record companies, we were at the Vista Hotel on 14th Street, and we would come out at 7 o'clock in the morning. I remember the Diana Ross Muscles party, and everybody's screwing in hot tubs. They had 4 hot tubs, and oh man, and I cried when Joe Gorham died, because that was like my Joe Gorham. It was a toga party, and I'll never forget. Joe had on a toga at the door with a tray full of joints and stuff, and we just had the time of our lives. And Zeke Sanders, who gave that party, he's been gone forever. So it's this, you know.
I've heard the stories, Captain Paul Porter. I've heard this as a young person. I've heard plenty of those stories. In where the area, the demographic, woo, you could get everything on 14th Street back in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh my
literally.
God.
Oh my God.
But Paul, also, I'm hopping back and forth. But also, when you talk about, like you said, from radio to news coverage, right? I was watching a story the other day. I told Bootsy about, they were doing a story on nuclear power coming back, right?
Okay.
But when you say to us nuclear power, the connotations of our generation is not good at all. It's bad, right? And so, Paul, the part about the story that to me now you see that back then you didn't see, back then these stories had resolutions and they asked the hard question. In this nuclear power story, it almost felt like it was sponsored by a nuclear power company, because, Paul, they very, very, you know, just a little bit spent time on the waste, which is the problem. The meltdown and the waste are the two big issues. Yeah. But it was like this much. If you watch the story, you would have come away from it like, oh, well, I never thought about it, but nuclear power sounds like a great idea. So back then, even though y'all was partying, there was that editor, there was that person that would ask the hard question. If you came to them with a package that didn't answer certain questions, they'd be like, you need to do this shit over again. So, Paul, what changed?
You know, what changed? What do you mean in terms of the culture?
I guess those editors, those program directors, those gatekeepers, they were different back then.
Yeah, but think about it. Think about the Telecom Act of '96 when Bill Clinton signed that. That's what changed when local ownership changed. Where you could own a radio station and be rich. You know, Philadelphia DAS was owned locally, RL, blah blah. And once these corporations, when iHeart went from, well, Clear Channel back then went from 90 stations to 1,100 stations, and Kathy Hughes went from 3 to 60. Then all of a sudden the creativity was lost, and you're trying to make money for stockholders and not creators, you know, and that's when I saw the biggest change. And that's when the money got real funny. You know, thank God I was at a union shop in DC in 1980, making $60,000. Well, guess what? That job at KYS at nights doesn't pay that now, 40 years later.
Wow.
So, you know, but the rich have gotten richer, you know. Kathy's okay, Alfred's okay, and some people at the station are okay, but, you know, it's not for everybody. And life is not fair, okay? Let's be honest. But I know when I'm talking about Black culture and what we're passing down to our children, there has to be some limits. There has to be some voice that speaks up. But nobody has the money to do it. My nickname is DJ Broke as Shit. Because speaking out don't get you anywhere. It don't get you rich. Ain't nobody hit my Cash App, Music Biz U, But you know,
Hold on. What is it again? Music Biz
you, yeah, the letter U, BIZU. But nobody supports efforts like, if I said, yo, I'm teaching 20 kids voiceover, is somebody gonna help me? No. I gotta learn how to do certain things to get grants and funding. But if I was selling something dumb right now, they buy it. We got to do a better job of supporting each other.
Well, Paul, I love that idea. I think we're going to work on that. We got some people who are fans of the show. That I think that voiceover for the community, for the kids, is something, Paul, we need to. And then we got the legend.
VO, you see that?
Yeah.
The VO means voiceover. Got VO.
And Paul, I think because Bootsy's already in the space, we get a VO program. You gotta
have me at your school, man.
Absolutely. Come on home, because DC is home to you, whether you know it or not. You know what I mean?
Oh, no. I was on the phone with Candy Shannon yesterday.
Oh my God, Candy Shannon. She came to my elementary school when I was young. So she still teaches there?
Yeah, at Howard. Yep.
Oh, I need to give
Paul,
her.
what we're gonna do, we're claiming it after June 1st. I'm gonna fly Paul in, my treat. I'm gonna put you up, Paul, and we're going to spend some time with Bootsy. You and I are gonna hang out, and we're going to get this VO program for the community set up. Let's do it.
Yeah. Hey, it's just about giving folks chances and ideas. I didn't have those ideas when I was younger. A guy, you remember Adolph Caesar?
Oh, yeah. Mine is a terrible thing to waste. He was the voiceover for that.
Yeah. He was the voice for ABC. I played college basketball at Northeastern with his nephew, Herb Caesar. And I used to call him Uncle Adolph.
Wow.
And back in the 80s, he was like, you better learn how to do voiceover. I always liked his role in Soldier Story when he said that line.
He was amazing.
Yeah, you little geeky nigga. Anyway.
You geeky niggas.
Yeah. So Uncle Adolph told me about voiceover, and I was like, my ego was, I got an agent in New York, took the train up, didn't book anything, and my ego was too big. And then later on, when I got fired, I got back into it and had some success. But if I had more Adolph Caesars in my life, I would have learned. Like, somebody told me about crypto 10 years ago, but I only heard it once. Maybe I'd be rich. But we just got to put these ideas in our heads to create our own.
Right.
And if we don't do that, and I love young children, right? But they crazy out there. I carry a gun down here in Florida. I want to shoot them. I love them, so I'd rather teach them. I'd rather shoot some of these crazy-ass rednecks down here, but no, I can't do that either.
Bootsy, you're hilarious. Bootsy's reactions today have been amazing.
I mean, I've never seen that on a podcast before. Somebody just whip out like that,
No, but it's on me. It's on me.
Yeah, we see.
And also, Paul is in his, ladies and gentlemen, his thousands of dollars studio. Paul has his own custom studio. He's there now making money off of. Congratulations, Mr. Porter.
Man, I'm doing everything for free.
That microphone in there, Bootsy, it costs like $1 million. He's in there with that.
$1,000. That's about it. Yeah, and I'm still in the red. Go ahead.
Paul, I would love to ask you this question. Do you think in the future there'll be a space for LP radio stations? What do you think the future of LP stations? I know you have one. I actually worked at one before in Charlottesville, whatever, through the internet and through all these streaming services, whatever.
You
think it's a future for
LP?
LP?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Luckily we applied for the license for the Wire in Orlando. Wow. Damn, my mom's been dead 10 years. That was 9 years. It took 4 years. And that was a Democratic thing. The Republicans won't let LPFMs happen. And that's what I'm scared about. This election coming up in 2022, then 2024. I think we're going to have some real issues in this country. I'm in Florida with the craziest governor of all time. He changed the abortion thing, 15 hours, the critical race thing, and books. And I love Florida where I live, but I got a crazy governor. So, but I'm going to use what I can and do what I can for as long as I can in this space to make it easier for somebody else. I'm at that point in my life. And I've always done that. That's why I've hooked up. Yo, me and Mark are like the best friends who've never met, because to learn how to engage and talk to somebody. And that was the one thing I learned with Mark early, even when Mark was at HUR knowing, oh my God, this shit is terrible. And he knew he blew it. And that's what I like. I've blown so many good situations in my, being brash and not speaking up. That not speaking up thing, I left that at the door 25 years ago. I'm not gonna be the sucker, anyway. Like go ahead.
No, what do you think about a situation? Do you think a situation if somebody had a bunch of LPs in different states? Because I'm fascinated about LPs and how the laws and how it varies from state to state.
And low power stations, what Boosie's talking about, low power radio stations.
Yes. Low power FM, LP.
Yeah.
Look, I think radio's dead. All right, because once the internet is in everybody's car, it really doesn't make any difference. If you can pull up somebody's stream, when I see, like I said, Hot 97, they're number 17 in New York. The kids are on their mobile phones and everybody's living out this dream in radio. And I got a radio station. Worst thing I ever did. That's why I'm DJ Broken Shit now.
Hold on. What do you mean the worst thing you ever did? What do you mean it's the worst thing you ever did?
It was just the timing. Radio was just dying year after year. And
what could save it?
Things, huh?
What could save it then? If it's dying and dying, in your opinion, what do you think, if you was in charge of it, what do you think we should do to revitalize it?
Oh, I think real music, real personality people would turn into. Like if you heard some joints, like in DC, I was tracking HUR and the music. Man, I don't need to hear Wild Thoughts every day, 8 times a day. And certainly, everybody plays is so safe, and I'm not even a Frank Ski fan, and Frank Ski's winning. He's like, he did his thing in Atlanta, but I just think local content, dealing with local issues. Right. That's what radio can win by, because people care about their communities. We're so syndicated on everything. Like Michael Baisden, you notice how he went away and they never came back, tried to come back. People get tired, they get tired. Anyway, at least I do.
The irony is the station, like you said, the gatekeepers are preventing the stations from like engaging in the community, and the community is so desperate. It's so funny. So when we were at HUR, and how you don't know what people are thinking, or you don't know what the game plan is, because again, it's not logic. It's obviously not logic. And so when Allison and I did our first and only a couple, anytime, Bootsy, you have Allison Seymour somewhere in DC, it's going to be crazy, right? People are going to be crying. People are going to be crying. People are going to whatever. And I think, so when we did, something out in the community, the first one thing we did an outside concert where Mary J. Blige was there. And y'all know DC, grown folks in DC are not bothered. When Allison walked in that crowd, it was like Jesus came back. Mm-hmm. It was crazy.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Anybody who cared about winning would have saw that reaction, Paul. Because DC, you know how DC is. DC don't be doing that. Grown folks in DC do not be getting up and oh my God, they were coming out, stepping up, and so I was just like, but they were like, they somehow were like, okay, and so that speaks to me, that just speaks to like the mindset.
How many times did y'all do live things like that?
Right, we did like 3 things, and each time it was crazy.
Almost 2 years, yeah.
And the funny part was every time it was like they would try to down it. You come back, and instead of people like, "Oh my God," people were like, "Wow," you know.
You know why? Because those people were never part of movements like that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So they don't
Exactly.
know.
And
Like,
so it
that's
was
the
just
power. When you said that, I remembered we had the Superfest at RFK Stadium in the 80s.
Wow. Woo!
It was like 45,000 people out there. And when I went to the stage and told some jokes, and you hear the cheers and like personalities to people in radio were huge. We would get 4,000 at KYS Small Star basketball games.
I remember that.
Okay.
I remember
and
y'all did softball games too, Captain.
softball, Kevin James, pool parties.
Yep.
That connection. HUR is that connection. You know, they should be out there. Should be more than this, the turkey drive and the same old things. Like, but people don't want to go out anymore. They're real lazy, or they don't know the power.
look at Troy.
There's no power in radio anymore.
Troy says, "Let me get my popcorn in this section of the chat."
No, because
TV star Troy Johnson joins us.
hello, Troy. I think the most amazing thing that you said, Mark, and it was so interesting because, as somebody who's born and raised in the community, when you said, if you cannot market Allison Seymour in the DC community, maybe you should be doing something else. That was the realest thing. It's few people that I've seen people have like, fan moments. Donnie and Allison are the only people that I've seen regular people cry for when they come past. Like they just want to meet him or whatever. It's just so interesting that it seems like a collective effort to minimize the personality as well. You know what I mean? Do you think people actually know that, or they really believe in their mind syndicated this the way to go for the future? Paul.
Syndicated is cheaper, but there's no excuse not to be local. There's no excuse. There's no way in the world. And I know Sean hates me. He doesn't know me, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, there's no reason not to have a local morning show in Washington, D.C., top 10 market. Why isn't there one? Okay? Just tell me, what's the excuse?
That's a fact, bro.
Yeah, come on, man. D.C. got so much flavor. Everybody would, but, you just got to have the right mind. Maybe if Dr. Frederick retires, he'll bring me back.
Well, PGC's got a new morning show.
No, it's not local.
Oh,
that's not local?
It's local, but it ain't local. Take it from somebody who's done radio in DC.
On the PGC show.
I'll let Mark tell you.
Go ahead, Bootsy, because I'm old. I can't remember names.
Okay, so Monique Samuels from Potomac Housewives, she's on there. Also a comedian from Baltimore is on there, and then there's Todd B, who did late night.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So hey, you know what I mean? But hey, if you're trying to me, and let me say this, I got a lot of love for PGC. I'm not saying that because I was in the running to be on that morning show or whatever. I appreciated just the opportunity, but it was interesting on what they thought could connect to local. Like, I was really fascinated.
Who's the decision maker there?
I don't know.
The boss.
I don't know.
I know.
Well, then we got Russ. Russ is a local morning show.
Yeah.
No.
No.
He's local, but national.
Russ is local. Russ is local.
But the only place you see him is Potomac at the nearest crib.
Yeah, in
Gaithersburg.
At Gaithersburg. But I will say this: he do have DC people on his show. But to me, as you were saying before, it does not have a local DC thing. Even when he was in DC, it didn't necessarily feel like DC. You know what I mean? The one thing that, and I don't get into no conversation about my homie DS because Donnie Simpson really did change my life. What I respect about Donnie is he loves to include, he always was open to include local people in their situation. He took a guy like me from a go-go band that I know they was like, do not get this guy in here. And Donnie was like, no, I'm bringing him. So what I will say is even when Donnie, whatever people feel like he think he is, he's still smart enough to bring local people in and engage them in the community. Yeah. And that's why he's always had that hole, is because he always feels the need to include people from the area. You know what I mean? And he allowed you to be that. Like, as you know, Bama was a DC term. Huggy Lowdown, the Bama of the week is now everywhere. Like, he literally did let Huggy come on and talk in the most DCest, I mean, it sounded like the guy from the barbershop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a barbershop.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know what? Now that I'm glad Paul's here, because we can finally get some clarity here. Because Paul, you were here. Okay. And you're not from DC, but you were here a long time, right?
Yeah.
So the DMV, Paul, did that term in your mind? When did you start hearing that? Because there was a time when they didn't say that, right? When you were here.
Oh yeah, they didn't say that in the 80s. When did it start?
Okay, so
like the mid 2000s, and really,
it was a promoter, right? It was parties, right?
Yeah. So basically, it happened because there were college people and promoters who wanted to find creative ways to get people from DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Because if you was from Maryland and Virginia, DC people always made you feel like an outsider. They would call you a Maryland Bama. Oh, you not from DC, you from Virginia. So that was what that was really about, was the fact that DC people had alienated people from Maryland and Virginia for years.
And so
like, this had been going on for years. Yes.
So Bootsy, and so why? So the funny part is, but they didn't include Baltimore. When they say DMV, people say, "Oh, they ain't talking about Baltimore." Yeah. What was that about?
Okay, so I'll let Paul chime in on this one too. But let me say this: I don't know where it started from. I don't know where it has come from. There has always been some competitive thing with DC and Baltimore for years. I don't know how it started. I don't know what it is. There's always been, I don't want to call it tension. I don't want to call it whatever, but there has, from the day I can remember being born, doing music and all that, even when I went to college, Baltimore had one type of vibe, one type of scene, one type of thing, one type of lingo, one type of dress. DC was totally different, and they never really intertwined and engaged.
Okay, like that. Paul, you're a senior statesman.
Well, Baltimore back in the day was sort of like the hood. We only went to Baltimore to go to the Inner Harbor
and party.
Yeah. Well, not even party, because everything was in houses back then. They had.
But Allison said that you guys used to go to some, I guess it was an area in Baltimore that they started doing party. I guess maybe that was down
by the college 80s, area. Right? Yeah, it was a college area. It was
okay. We'll move on. Paul, Bama. When did Bama hit?
Man, that was late. You know?
So that wasn't your part of your generation in the 80s necessarily.
Nah. But hold on. Let me say this.
Bootsy Vegas.
I graduated high school in 1994. I went to elementary school every day. The word Bama in DC had always
94.
been. Yeah, I graduated high school in 94.
Youngster, bro.
That term in DC, the streets of DC, has always been circulated. Like if you were off brand, it was basically you were off brand. You wasn't, or you was country, or if you wasn't from DC, Bama. they would be like, get this Maryland Bama out of here, get this Virginia Bama out of here. So the word Bama had been circulated. Whether people want to admit this or not, Huggy Lowdown is the person that circulated when he started saying Bama of the week, Bama of the week.
Okay.
And it kind of ventured from there. But DC had always been saying Bama.
So this is the kind of hard-hitting journalism that you don't get anywhere else. We got the legendary Paul the Voice Porter.
Yes,
Let me tell you something, Paul Porter. The gods, Adolf, Caesar told you should do. The man told you 40 years ago.
And he was doing ABC back then.
Wow.
Isn't it funny, Paul? Like all those blessings, those blessings along the way, huh?
Oh, I see him and I feel him and I understand him. That's why I know it's so important for us to share now and just get it in with them, because, being younger in the old days, it was at the park. The only time you knew the older guys was at the park when you were trying to get a run. But we just have so many ways to communicate. And we're not doing enough. We should be training up so many of these young folks. And they might not go for it the first time, or your daughters might not listen to you. They might listen to Bootsy. They might listen to me. But if they hear more, there's this thing when you mentioned I spoke at Harvard, I talk about the E ratio, the amount of time mobile phones that we spend on our mobile phones. with education or entertainment. So the average person spends 50 minutes on entertainment and 1 minute on education. The average Black kid spends 200 minutes on entertainment and 1 minute on education. And there's so much great information on our phones. And the more we learn, the better we are.
Right.
But we don't even teach learning. We don't seek learning. We don't have these conversations about financial literacy. That's why when I was at Northeastern as a senior in Bloomingdale's, gave me that $500 credit limit, and I spent it in a week, and my credit's been shit for 50 years because I never learned credit.
I did the same thing, Paul. I did the same thing.
I did the
They
same
walked
thing.
up. They walked up and gave it. I signed. They gave me the card, and I walked off.
I graduated. I got my brand new Ford EXP to get my job in Huntsville. The Ford EXP, you guys may remember it, quite sporty. Then I got the call. Sir, we need you to return the car because apparently you had a previous credit card.
Oh, really?
So I had to come. I said, and my mother, of course, said she would not co-sign for anything. So I traded in the Ford EXP to get the Yugo for $9,000. A Yugo, ladies and gentlemen.
I haven't heard that in a
next
while.
week.
Had a Yugo. I remember that.
Which the next week the Yugos were going for $400. So,
Wow.
But anyway, Paul, you are a blessing. We appreciate you, my friend. We look
Man,
forward to seeing you in June when you come back.
Paul, let me just say this to you. As a DC native who has been listening to you literally all my life, you're a real legend. If ain't nobody ever told you how much they appreciated your voice, your wisdom in the DMV area, like without even knowing you, you literally did have a part in my development and raising me and wanting to be a journalist. You know what I mean? It is a real privilege to finally have these conversations with. This is a bucket moment. I brought your book the first day it came out. I really enjoyed it, and I respected everything that you said. You know what I mean? And that's what you said.
Appreciate
I want you to know, as a
my
young
number
person,
from Mark, man.
I will.
Talk, man.
Oh, I will, because
know,
the interesting thing is,
and that's the beauty, man. I've always learned, and I learned this from my mother. My mother talked to everybody. She's on the phone. She might not have went, her little girl from Trinidad accent, and everybody's important because you never know where anybody can be. So I've always been respectful to anybody, and says, you know, I remember when Joy Reid was on a little station in Miami, and she called me for an interview. And then she called me again like 10 minutes before the next week. And then she went somewhere else, and we built a bond and friendship over the years. And she called me, wow, it's almost a dozen years ago. There's a job at NBC. And I knew somebody who was at Comcast, the VP. I called him right away, Payne Brown, and said, I got this person for your job at MSNBC in the Griot. He goes, they're hired. I said, I didn't tell you the person's name. He said, Paul, you never asked me for anything. I know you know. Give them my number. They're hired. True story. Joy Reid will tell you. I called her back 5 minutes. I said, Joy, I know this shit seems crazy, but call Payne Brown. You got the job in New York. And here it is, 10 years later, she's the number one anchor.
Miss MSNBC right now.
Making millions, living right out there with you guys in Bowie.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question. Let me get you on record. Can you get her to speak to my students?
I don't know, but I can try.
My man,
I know she's busy. But
no, it's all good.
Yeah,
we can do a Zoom. We can do a Zoom with my kid.
But that's how it happens.
Right.
You know, and sometimes, and when Joy did her first show on MSNBC, she put Rap Rehab, my website, up on it. And when I had my book, she had me on as a guest. Wow. And that's why it pays off. Wow. It pays off for being nice. I'm going to be nice to everybody. And sometimes you don't get it back, and other times you will, man. But it's easier being nice. You know,
we got to shout out my girl, Olivia Fox, who brought Paul into my world. You know, Olivia Fox, who, again, I mean, Paul, like me, has a lot of people, women, as friends. Yeah, that's something else that I think
tongue kissed Olivia though at Fridays.
Okay, well, damn.
She slapped one on me because
Well-
I got Olivia her job at HUR. Earl Boston
Wait
said,
a minute, Olivia tongue kissed you at Friday.
yeah.
Well,
And she walks up to me and she wanted to say thank you for the job, and she put her tongue in my mouth, and I always tease her about that. She's like, "Oh, Paul, that's
What a life."
well, Olivia and I went to college together, and we're in Huntsville, Alabama. You remember how you used to have the radio station and you have the glass, and it was a midday of the little bitty studio, but the midday, she was a midday person I hired out of college, and that's my girl. So Olivia put him on the glass as I was walking by. Those are the good old days of radio. But no, Olivia was close with Paul, and Paul and I again have become super close. And it's just crazy. We never meet each other in person, but we will, Paul. It's going down.
Yeah, that's because you didn't come to my book thing years ago, man. You flaked out on me, man.
I'd have came, Paul, if I was invited.
No, Paul knew I was. Something happened. You know I was going to be there.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, brother. One more time, if you haven't picked up Paul's best-selling New York Times bestseller, Black Out. I thought it was Blackballed. Black Out.
My 40 years in the music business.
And Paul, you got a new one coming, right?
I got something even better than that coming, man. That's all I can say. I got something visual finally. And if anybody needs a voice on anything, Google my VO demo, Paul. I'm trying to make money. I got a grandchild for the first time, and I love my grandchild better than my sons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, does your son have your voice?
Yeah, he got a fake deep voice. He went to Morris Brown, and he sort of got the, hey, Dad. And he's got like 30 pounds on me, but I got to get him in my VO class. He was in Atlanta too long, and he works with Little Baby. He works at Quality Control Records, so he's out on the road with
QC.
Little Baby and Offset. Yeah, QC.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, Paul, you look good, man. Look, you would you shave or something? Something looks different.
No, I pulled my dreads back, man. But I'm gonna be 65. I'm working out, trying to get the guns back. You know, I'm down to 205, and I was always 240 my whole life. So I'm feeling athletic, man. Trying to be in love.
Oh, wait a minute. What now?
Well, the problem is Governor DeSantis changed the abortion ban to 15 weeks, so now I can't have sex anymore.
Okay, see? That's what we're talking about right here.
I have to give some hard humor to it, huh?
All right, bro. Paul Porter, ladies and gentlemen. Bootsy, Paul, have a great one. Let's get ready for the weekend, guys. We'll have an easy show tomorrow.
Me, bro.
I will. Don't you worry.
Hey, and Kevin Reynolds, man, I'm going to read all your 19 comments here, man. Love you, bro.
Oh, Paul, let me tell you something. You and Kevin are cut from the same cloth. He had enough. He left to move to Colombia. He was sick of the U.S. He rode like that.
What? Okay,
yeah,
but that's what I'm talking about. I might be on a boat.
There you go. There you
go.
All
if
right.
this next election in 2024 goes wrong, and remember, when's the last time somebody on your show showed the gun? All right now.
The last time and only time. All right.